We're very happy to welcome Mr. Paul Fox. Great to have you.
Great to have you.
Thank you so much for coming.
It's a pleasure.
You began your career as a session musician. How did that get started?
That got started just sort of out of luck. I moved down here from San Francisco, where I was more in the jazz world, and I had a couple of friends that I went to college with, and two of them ended up as recording engineers in Los Angeles. So I decided to move into Los Angeles, and I ended up meeting two or three people that were very instrumental in all that happening by accident. I went into a rehearsal room, and somebody had called me up and said, you know, these guys are looking for a keyboard player at the time, and I walked in, and there was a guitar player named Dennis Herring. There was a guitar player / songwriter named Glenn Ballard, and I just got in with those guys, and we became friends, and we started doing a lot of sessions with different producers. Richard Perry being the first big producer that I ended up working with, and Richard ended up taking me on, and for about 2 years I worked with Richard on a lot of different records, and Glenn, Dennis, myself, and some other people that we knew were all kind of just a little bit of a roving unit that went around from working with people like the Pointer Sisters to working with Motley Crue.
Okay.
Yeah.
In your experience, what do you feel is the most important quality that a session musician needs to have in order to get booked?
They have to be able to play their instruments really well.
Okay.
You know,
so mastery of the instrument.
The mastery of the instrument, I think that's really the biggest thing. And then also really being able to understand what it is that the producer is looking for, and also bringing in something that the producer might not even know that they could have, you know, finding and feeling it out as far as like what the song is all about, and as far as what the other players, let's say if I came in on a session, I may be the one guy who's coming in to add to something that's already there, and if something's there, I might, you know, get some idea that maybe nobody else thought of because they were so, you know, the forest through the trees syndrome, basically.
Right.
And,
okay.
Yeah. And to me, that was one of my strong points, is because I could come in and I could hear something, you know, and I had some objective, you know, abilities, because everybody else might have been trying to figure out, like, what do we do next? What do we do? This isn't working, you know, mute this. And I might have you know, I usually did have an idea that maybe nobody had, and then I would lay that down, and that would help open up everybody else's, you know, minds to different ideas and places that it could go as well.
Okay. You mentioned, you know, working on songs, and I'm curious, in your mind, you know, as a producer, as a writer and a player, what is the main distinction to you between a great song and a great record?
Oh, I see, between a great song, well, the distinction I would say is that a great record lives on forever, and a great song, well, I think a great song lives on as well. But as I'm thinking about it, what came to mind is that with a great record, you have it as a piece of, these days, metal, back then vinyl, but you probably have it in your collection, and it probably is something that hopefully, if it's really lasting forever, that you just like one day want to just take it out and listen to it again, and then you just listen to it and you go, yeah, you know, this is a record that's never gonna, you know, go away. You know, it's not going to be like something where just because things have changed in terms of people's taste, that it will just disappear. And I think that's for me, that's really what it's all about, actually. It's like, if there's something that lasts, you know, for that length of time, then you know that that's like gold. You know, it's like you just know it's going to be there and always be worth something. And other songs, I think, are more beholden to the era that they were written in. You know, if there was, well, for instance, when I say Motley Crue, there was a moment, you know, where all those bands all sort of sounded somewhat alike, you know, but they all had their own sound. And then after a while, that sound, you know, it just kind of like fizzled out a little bit, and it wasn't so, you know, so much in demand.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think sometimes, you know, great songs can last beyond their era. They can get re-recorded, or the right artist can come along. I remember The Greatest Love of All. We were talking about Whitney Houston earlier before you arrived, and that's an example where the previous recordings of that song never really were a hit. Right. And when she ended up recording it, it became almost like a standard. Or Wind Beneath My Wings by Bette Midler, another, you know, great song that never was made into a great record.
That's true.
So
that's true. And I think it's interesting a lot of times when you go back, like I know for myself, a lot of the records that I've made, I've gone back and listened to the steps of when it started off, you know, just being just like, let's say, a piano and a vocal. And then as we got into the studio, we started adding maybe more. And I'll give you an example. Actually, for me, that was a lot of fun. I produced a band called Phish. And when I met with Phish, they were, you know, and people probably know them, they're a jam band. And I was asked to go down and work with them. And at first I was like, well, I listened to the cassette they sent, and I thought, what do you want me to do with this? I don't really, you know exactly like how I'm going to take this and turn it into what I think that the label might really want, you know, to have happen. So I met with the band at a show in New Jersey. And afterwards, I had to, you know, sit down with them, and I said, look, I would love to produce your record, but you have to promise me one thing. And they said, what's that? I said that you don't write any songs and start recording them on your own. You know, don't do anything but acoustic guitar and vocals, and that's it. Basically, just give me the song. And then when they came out here to work with me, we started right there, and then we built it, you know, step by step. By the end, I had Tower of Power on it. I had all these different people, Bella Fleck, Alison Krauss, they all were on the record. But by then, we could have a vision of where it was going to go. And, you know, for me, that was, you know, something that was really fun to do. And you know, enabled, you know, the song to, at the end of the day, speak for itself.
Okay. I'm curious, did you learn engineering skills? You know, you talked about being a producer. Did you learn engineering skills before becoming a producer? Or was that something that you relied on other people for?
A little bit of both.
A little, okay.
Yeah, because that was like the beginning of the technology where you had a Tascam 8-track, and you know, and you kind of figure out like how to use that. And my friends, a couple of them had the same, you know, kind of thing, so we could kind of, you know, work off of each other and learn. And that really was something that that, you know, was a big help, you know, in terms of being able to actually work at home, you know, and not have to go to a studio. But I learned a lot from doing it at home, and then when you get into a studio, then you can work with the engineer and be able to have, you know, a good rapport with the engineer, and then I would kind of let the engineer take over so I could sit back and listen more.
So it was really, you learned the basics essentially.
Yeah.
More or less, and then did you keep up with technology?
Yeah, you have to, you know, and I also go back with it. Like in my studio, I have a lot of things now that some of the new guys wish that they had. You know, they'll see something like a Prophet 5. I had one of the first Prophet 5s. They'll see that and they'll go, oh, that's cool, man. What's that? You know, and then you plug it in and they hear that sound, and it's such a warm, different kind of a sound than some of the stuff that we're hearing now.
Right. So you're sort of educating them on older gear.
Exactly.
That they haven't been exposed to or haven't come up with.
Right. And vice versa, I can learn from what they're doing with the way that they get their sounds and the way that they work now.